Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the wild, wonderful mountain state, and today's date is Saturday, August 14th, 2021. Yeah, just doing a rearrange in my place. Had to do some cleaning. It's looking a lot better. Less stuff on the floor. So I'm happy about that. And the rest is like along the wall, so made a little what do they call that? A loft. So I can put stuff on top. So got too much crap. I have to admit it. But you know what? I got places for this, so I'm in good shape. Not sweating at all. It's just really disheartening when you got ingrates out there want to condemn, pick on people, manifest over petty things, and violate while violating others. They are the lost cause. They need to look in the mirror. They're not paying attention to what's really going on. And I always figure that out. Why they have an obtuse fetish, I have no idea. You gotta really know your surroundings, and of course, you got the faction fetish out there. My team's better than yours, instead of congregating to see what they have in common. Gross state of affairs, indeed. On the other hand, you got many people are still waking up to the cause, seeing things in the bigger picture, and learning a lot more thorough on what needed to be done. And of course, inflation's going up little by little. Supply chain, even trying to get stuff for accessories from the auto parts store, there's some delays. So just giving you guys a heads up, just an example. And hey, all I gotta do is just stay focused and love your neighbors, including yourself. There's too much friction and animosity out there. You don't need to have that cancerous element in your lives. So, speaking of tyranny, which I despise a lot, we're going to look into more of a spiritual, down-to-earth perspective. And this one came from the Waking Times. It was published yesterday. WakingTimes.com. Freedom Fighter versus Crime Fighter. This is what Gary Z. McGee has to say. A happy life is impossible. The highest thing that man can aspire to is a heroic life, such as a man lives, who is always fighting against unequal odds for the good of others, and wins in the end without any thanks. After the battle is over, he stands like the prince in the Ricardo of Ghazi, with dignity and nobility in his eyes, but turned to stone. His memory remains and will be reverenced as a hero. His will that has been mortified all his life by toiling and struggling, by evil pavement and ingratitude, is absorbed into nirvana. That was by Arthur Schopenhauer. The war on freedom is very real, but the battle line must first be drawn within. The front line begins with the self. It's easy to fall into a trap of thinking the way things are is the way things should be. But it's thinking like this that prevents progress and improvement. The choice between courageous heroism and comfortable cowardice must be made by each of us individually. We must all choose between vulnerability, facing the unknown with courage, or invulnerability, hiding from the unknown behind outdated armor. Cowards abound on the outskirts, reinforcing outdated notions of law and order. Apathetic armchair warriors are rampant behind the ramparts, soft in their comfort zone, weak in their privilege, all too certain with their spoon-fed rhetoric and antiquated platitudes. But most of them don't even know what they don't know what's going on. Worst of all are the thin blue line bootlickers with their Blue Lives Matter eye guards, blinding them to the true nature of reality. They cannot see how all the lives cannot matter until black lives matter, as much as white lives or even blue lives do. That is true. Ad hominems aside, the idea of the crime fighter is vastly overrated. Rampart crime is not really an issue anymore. As David Pinker said in a recent TED Talk, our ancestors were far more violent than we are. Violence has been in decline for long stretches of time, and today we are probably living in the most peaceful time in our species' existence. In fact, war crime is created by crime fighters fighting unjust wars like the war on drugs and crime otherwise. As Brian Stevenson said in Time magazine, since Nixon's tough on crime rhetoric and war on drugs, we have used a criminal justice approach when we should have used a public health approach. Meanwhile, the prestige of the freedom fighter is grossly underrated and quite often not even on anyone's radar. Indeed, the freedom fighter is a public health approach. They are the frontline defense against overreaching power. Where the crime fighter offensively overreaches with outdated laws despite freedom, the freedom fighter defends freedom from the overreaching state despite outdated laws. Let's break them both down. The aggrandizement of the crime fighter. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Stephen Molyneux. As it stands, the police have become the weak men who are creating hard times. Historically, police had a stronger code of ethics and less power. They were also better trained and held to a higher standard. But now cops are ill-trained, overly powerful, and they blindly uphold outdated, unjust laws while being held to a lower standard than criminals. It's no longer a matter of protecting and serving. It's a matter of blind allegiance to antiquated law and order and obediently follow the chain of command out of fear of the thin blue line. This weak, offense-mind policing has created hard times through aggressive overreach and oppressive extortion rackets. This includes, but is not limited to, civil asset forfeiture. As if police brutality, extortion, and an overreach of power weren't enough, unscrupulous police officials have been manipulating the deeply flawed federal and state laws that give them permission to seize, keep, or sell any property allegedly involved in the crime. The problem is the entrenchment of power with no recourse, not even courts or just a recourse. The problem is cowardice, hiding behind militarized hyperviolence. The problem is weakness disguised as strength, which creates the illusion of invulnerability. The problem is ill-trained incompetence that fears for its life. What happened when you have ill-trained men and women who can't handle the heat, but who also have more power than God, acting as judge, jury, and executioner in the streets? You get whiny, woe is me, pseudo cops using the rhetoric of I fear for my life as a poor excuse to defend their grave incompetence. 9 out of 10, had the cop simply left well enough alone, that is, had the cop simply not overreached with his or her power, the situation would have resolved itself. All too often, when weak, ill-trained, crime-planning cops are concerned, violence is the answer to even simple problems. Fear-based, violent-based policing just leads to the victimization of the citizenry. A healthy society cannot live under the fear of violence. All such societies eventually dissolve into tyranny unless those who enforce the fear and violence back off. That is, the police must stop overreaching. stop shooting first and asking questions later, and simply allow people to be free as long as they are not being violent. As David Graeber said, people don't need to be threatened with force or fines or jail time or divine commandments to get them to do the right thing. We can organize ourselves and police ourselves. In fact, that's the only way it can happen with the respect and dignity maintained. As such, police overreach must switch to police being policed. So who will guard the guards themselves? Who will police the overreach? Hyper-violent police despite their entrenched power. The answer is the strong man created by hard times, the freedom fighter. The rise of the freedom fighter. If a man wants to become a hero, the snake must first become a dragon. Otherwise, the hero is lacking his proper enemy, Friedrich Nietzsche, or Nietzsche. As it stands, the snake of the overreaching police state has indeed become a dragon. It might even be a dragon that's too big to fail. But as David courageously faced down Goliath, so too must the freedom fighter face down the power of the state and the overreaching crime fighters who back it up. Freedom fighters rise above the pettiness of their statist indoctrination by reconditioning their cultural conditioning. They unwash the brainwash by questioning the powers that be to the ninth degree. No authority is off the hook for being ruthlessly interrogated and found wanting. This especially stands for the entrenched authority. The new league of strong men will be those with the courage to police the police themselves. Their strength will come from their courage and insouciance, from their audacity and daring, from their fearlessness and eagerness to take risks. In a world bloated with outdated, immoral, and unjust laws, it takes a particular flavor of courage to stand against it. It takes someone with Promethean audacity and Nietzschean ruthlessness. It takes an anti-hero with thick skin to prick and deflate the ego of the thin-skinned hero cop. It takes a moral wherewithal, despite the two moral goody two-shoes on one end of the courage spectrum and the moral psychopaths on the other end. It takes the kind of courage that counterintuitively balances light with dark, joins summit with abyss, and baptizes one's badness into one's best. The key is nonviolence. The non-aggression principle is foremost. The best weapon against violence is nonviolence, or even better, laughter in the face of violence. So today's freedom fighter must be equipped with an ironic sense of humor that borders on satire or even sacred clowning. The counting coup will be a much-needed skill set. The freedom fighter who is able to nonviolently count coup on outdated power constructs reveals the weakness of the power construct, which the citizenry can then attack with ridicule, cultural shaming mechanisms, and merciless parody. Though emballed in acts of civil disobedience, the freedom fighter becomes the personification of checks and balances by counting coup on the enemy, whether physically, psychologically, or even satirically. The freedom fighter defends freedom in the face of all entrenched power constructs seeking to trap freedom in a box of pseudo-safety and pseudo-security. At the end of the day, the freedom fighter, unlike the crime fighter, only uses violence as a last resort to protect freedom itself. Using violence to fight for freedom only kills freedom, but using nonviolent tactics to fight for freedom reinforces freedom. We're courageously mocking those who perpetuate violence. Freedom thrives in nonviolence. It dies in violence. Unless the only choice of violence through self-defense. Violence must be the last straw, lest, paraphrasing Gandhi, an eye for an eye make the whole world blind. Violence on top of violence only leads to more violence. But as Gandhi also said, where there is only a choice between cowardice and violence, I would advise violence. Gary Z. McGee, a former Navy intelligence specialist turned philosopher, is the author of Birthday Suit of God and The Looking Glass of Men. That's essential to know. And this is why organized the unorganized information war is nonviolent. Put out the truth. Technology to utilize it. That's the way we can put individuals in their places. And I'm not going to go around police bashing at all. That will be irrelevant because there's some beautiful people in this line of work. I know a good amount of them. And don't worry, the ones I have my battles with is always on principle. And of course, you got the pretentious ones like everyone else in society. It's nothing new. Even they tell me that without saying any names, which I respect dearly. One of the areas we should all go do is how to better ourselves. Be more methodical. Knowing laws, your rights as a whole. Natural rights. And addressing the truth. What we're seeing right now with this police state extravaganza, which is happening worldwide, they want to shun individuals that question authority, call them conspiracy theorists, ridicule them, mock them, crucify them, make sure they lose their jobs. That's just one of those. That's just one of them. That's unacceptable. Tyranny comes everywhere. It's all walks of life. You gotta despise it at all costs. Like what Thomas Jefferson said, defining the tyrants is obedience to God. Doesn't mean a deity. So this is interesting because we all have obligations, folks. Being a human doormat gets you nowhere. It get you killed. And walk in shame. Yes, we all have our battles. We win some, we lose some. We take these disappointments by stride. But it doesn't mean we got to give up on life. Be the freedom fighter. The crime fighter. Jury nullification is one of them. No victim, no crime. Everything should be a lot more thorough. Drug war, war on terror. Look what happened with the people, the protests that happened in Washington, D.C. A lot of them were still in jail. Still in their cell without facing the judge. Is that exceptional? No, it's not. It's not an insurrection. You can disagree with what they've done, that's fine. But it's been blown out of proportion. Those are the tyrants as well we got to call out. Whether it's federal, state, or local, or international. Always stand for what's right. If not, you will burn yourself and others you care for. And that will be it. Well, I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnote of this article on my Spreaker page. If you want to email me, go to LokiLuck number 03 at protonmail.com. Do a donation, you go to paypal.me or cash.app/LokiLuck number 3. And if you want to send your donations to the Waking Times, I believe they do have donations. I'm not so sure. But, yeah, you can send your contributions to them, if possible. Subscribe. That would be good. Right, that would be a great thing to do. Always love these individuals' work. So, it's very good inspiration. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.